From Anshe Sfar Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of the Nexus, the connection between Chanukah and Joseph. We know that as we read about Joseph, about the stories of Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, Vayechi, the end of Bereshit, the end of Genesis, it's all about Joseph and the story of his sale and his rise to power, bringing the brothers. We know that Chanukah always falls at this time, usually on Miketz, sometimes Vayeshev, sometimes Vayigash. Is there any connection between Joseph and Chanukah, or it's just a coincidence? Maybe a holy coincidence, but a coincidence. After all, the rabbis ordained that Simchas Torah, we finish the Torah. Simchas Torah, we start the Torah. And it works out that certain parshas fall at certain times, and that's just the way it is. Of course, we do know that the rabbis were very particular in how things fell out, such as certain readings should be done before Shavuot, certain readings should be done before Rosh Hashanah. But what about Joseph? Were the rabbis trying to connect Joseph and Chanukah? The earliest source for the connection that I can think of is the Gemara in Shabbos 22a. There the Gemara says that Rav Kahana says that Rav Nassan Bar Menyumi quotes the name of Rav Tanchum. Rav Tanchum, a famous Aggadist, does a lot of Aggadah. He quotes him as saying that Chanukah shenicha l'mal me'asri mama spila kesukah chumav. He says there are certain things in Jewish law that you want to see them. There's a certain type of eruv where there's a beam sticking out and you have to look at it. If it's too high, you can't see it. A sukkah, you want to be able to recognize that you're sitting in a sukkah. If it's too high, you can't see it. If it's more than 20 amos high, you can't see it. Period. And then the same rabbi, Rav Kahana, said that Rav Nassan Bar Menyumi quotes in the name of Rav Tanchum, that what? That in the story of Joseph, they threw him in a pit, and the pit was empty, it didn't have any water. So the Gemara says, if the pit is empty, of course it has no water. So why does it say both? Tell me, it has no water. However, it had snakes and scorpions. Now, firstly, what is the Gemara trying to tell us? It had snakes, didn't have snakes. What are they saying? And secondly, why does the Gemara quote two things from this Reb Tanchum, and one is about Chanukah and how tall the Chanukah menorah could be? Could the Chanukah menorah be in the second story if you can't see that far? And number two, the story of Joseph and the pit. What does that got to do with each other? So many have suggested that it has to do with being able to see it. You see, they threw him in the pit. Did they know that there were scorpions? No, they didn't know. Why? Because it was too far in. Of course, how could you throw someone that far down? But it was so far that you couldn't see, which proves the point that if something is too far up or down, you don't see it. So there's a halachic, legal connection between Chanukah and Joseph, and surely the rabbis were thinking about Joseph at this time of year because they too were reading about Joseph the week before Chanukah, the day before Chanukah, around Chanukah. There is an idea also that the connection is a miracle. That Joseph was thrown in a pit, there were snakes, and he didn't die. He didn't die. And so that's a miracle. And in fact, the Gemara says that, the Medrash says that when Yosef was returning to Israel to bury his father, he stopped at this pit and he said, he thanked God for making a miracle in this place. Because the pit was a miracle because he wasn't killed by the scorpions. Generally, we assume if someone is thrown in the pit, they will, and there are scorpions there, he will be dead. But not Yosef. He had a miracle. So too, the divine providence saved the Jews. That's how the Jews won the war, because God was with them, as God is symbolized by the candle of Chanukah and the miracle of the oil. So that's one possible connection. There's another connection, and that is that it says that women were also saved, so they have to celebrate Chanukah, have to light candles as well as men. So Rashi says, what does Chanukah have to do with women? Because when the Greeks said that all virgin women who get married have to sleep with the governor first, then Judith pretended to be interested in the governor and she chopped off his head while he was sleeping after she gave him milk. So some people have accustomed to have milk during this time, cheese, and also we see that there was a special miracle regarding women, that the Greeks were trying to defile the Jewish woman, and Judith and the Jews overcame this defilement. So too Joseph. The sort of last temptation of Joseph is, to borrow a secular phrase, the last temptation is, will he succumb to that master? After all, now he has a little bit of freedom, and he's got a master whose wife is presumably a prominent woman, and she's propositioning him, and he refrains, he runs away. And this shows the great chastity of Jewish men, Jewish women, and if we're going to have a miracle, this is the first thing we have to have, is preservation or chastity. But in the same story, it says that when she grabbed his coat, he ran out of the house. He ran out kind of, a little bit unclothed. And he was a chutza, he went outside. And this is Joseph really, symbolically, that's a good word for Joseph because Joseph was the foreign minister, of the Jews. He could talk to Pharaoh. He could explain to Pharaoh about God, talk about Elohim. And so too on Chanukah. Ner Chanukah, mitzvah, anichu al Pesach, bezom b'chutz. We're supposed to put the Chanukah candles outside. Whether actually outside or at least in the window, it's all about about spreading the wealth, about knowledge of God to the outside. The Imrei Emes, the Ger Rebbe after the Sfas Emes, he says that he quotes the Sfas Emes and he says that the Greeks made 13 holes in the walls of a certain part of the temple. And then later the Jews sealed it up and we would bow at those 13 places. So what happened? They were trying to take this private area called the Beit HaMikdash and open it to the public. Anybody can come in. And we were trying to do the opposite. We're taking the idea of a temple, the menorah, and we bring it to the outside. They wanted to bring the public into the private. We want to bring private, the idea of the holiness of God, out into the public. That's the connection between Yosef, who went out in the public, and Chanukah, where we are all about getting out into the public. Imrei Emes mentions that Sfas Emes, in the name of the Chidush Harim, the previous Rebbe, also tries to connect the idea of Hallel and Hodah to Joseph and Judah. The two stars of our show in the Judah-Joseph stories, Judah and Joseph. And they represent Hodah, Judah who admitted his sin, submitted to Tamar, and Joseph, who is all about praise. He's more of the perfect kind of a Jew. He's the Hallel Jew. The Imrei Emes also mentions another idea that Jacob, who's also the star of Vayeshev, Jacob gathered together all the forces, even the brothers who perhaps could have been lost. He brought them together. He brought all the sparks together. And so too, when it comes to Chanukah, we take the sparks of weekday, of the profane, and we make it holy. Because it's the only holiday where we say a complete Hallel, and yet there's no prohibition of work. It's a regular day. I go to work like it's a regular day. And I take that plain day, that profane day, and I make it a holy day. This is what it's all about. Finally, there's the notion of the Mashiach is born. With the Medrash, beautiful Medrash, says that, Yosef was worried, and his father was worried, and Reuven was worried, and Judah was busy getting married, and God was busy making the Mashiach. He was busy getting Mashiach ready. He says, Borei Orosh Mashiach. He was creating the light of the Mashiach, and because through the sordid stories of Judah and Tamar, we come to Peretz, who's the grandfather of King David and the Mashiach himself. So too, Chanukah is all about that last hurrah before the Mashiach comes, before the great exile, to remember that God is with us, as he was with the candles, symbol of God being with the Jews, and forevermore, he'll be with us. These are some connections one finds in the various Hasidic writings and in the Talmud itself. Of course, there's a more obvious connection, and that is that Joseph was that Jew who knew how to be holy within a surrounding of profanity, of idolatry. And so too, Chanukah is a time when Jews stood up to the Greek Syrians and were able to say, no, we have one God. We're not pagans. We're not Hellenists. We're not Greeks. We're Jews. We're standing up to all those forces that may be. This is Chanukah, the great pride of Joseph. He maintained his holiness, his tzaddik status, even among the Egyptians, even in captivity, even the worst of times. And so too the Jews. This very dark time with the Greeks, were able to light up the times, retain our identity, and on the contrary, to strengthen our identity, to mitchadesh, to renew our days. That's why Rosh Chodesh is always during Chanukah, because we want to renew, like the moon renews itself. We want to renew ourselves every Chanukah. And this is Chanukah, this is Joseph, to stand up against the forces of darkness. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sfar Beth Elameth Congregation for our discussion of the connection of Joseph's stories and Chanukah. Join us each week for a discussion of the Parsha, the holidays, how-to videos, and more. And thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit asb.org.